Hey, how are you?
Hi, Charlie. I'm good. How are you?
You know, a wonderful day here. It's been nice. This is the longest stretch that Denver has ever had, or the latest Denver's ever had snow, and we still don't have any. And
Wow.
we're coming up to the record. The record was 235 days between snowfalls. We're at about 228, 29.
Hmm.
I hope it goes on for 365 days myself. How are you
I can
doing?
imagine. I'm good. Great. Here we are having summers, still summers, not too cold, not too bad. It's chilly, but it's good.
Terrific. So you've been to the States.
Yes, I was in States, then I was in Canada for a while, and then I came back. I came back in September,
Uh-huh.
and now I am planning to come back after Christmas, approximately around the time of ISS.
Yeah.
And uh,
I'll be there. There's actually going to be quite a bit going on. I noticed there are quite a lot of companies that have signed up. And
mhm,
even I've got some friends from Europe that are flying in for it as well.
mhm. Actually, my visit mostly depends on that. I have a shipment scheduled to arrive just after ISS show. So these days the logistics and containers, everything is not arriving on time, and the schedules are not very perfect. So I will
Yeah.
check if the goods are arriving on time. Then probably I will visit ISS and then fly back to New Jersey to my office. And in case the goods are being delayed, then I might have to skip the show, because then there will be a long gap between the goods coming in and the show, and then I will have not much to do there. So that
Right
depends.
now, I think, you have a great opportunity to certainly make sales just because um, a lot of the domestic ink companies are not able to get raw materials and get product out there.
That's what I was there for like um, I was there for a couple of months, and I had the a lot of goods there. I shipped in quite some volume in New Jersey because there was a huge demand, and then we were just able to supply some goods and step into the market and have a good share of that. So that's what kept us going. Then we uh, are doing in Texas as well now.
So
And
where in New Jersey is your place?
it's in mountainside. I have
Mountainside.
kept
Is that
close.
northern, southern,
It's central. It's
central?
just
Okay.
it's in
Yeah,
it's in
I mean, I kind of know New Jersey, but not very well. Certainly not the smaller towns. I just
uh
did some work in Mount Laurel, which is um, closer to Philadelphia. You fly into Philadelphia versus flying into Newark. So you would have
mhm.
flown into Newark instead.
Yes. It's
Okay.
my place is around like 20 minutes from Newark Airport.
Yep. Okay. So I know where you are. I mean, it kind of clarifies a lot. So you have a
That's how it
warehouse
is
there, you have
going.
offices there, or are you working with another company there?
I have a small warehouse there, a shared warehouse with someone, and we are keeping our goods there. And hello.
Hi, I can hear you. Can you hear me? I think I've lost you for the moment.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you again.
Yes. So yes, I have a warehouse there, and and a small office and a person working for me. I prefer working through my own warehouse and own. salesperson, because that
Right.
keeps the things in line. Colored threads. So,
So are you planning on expanding at all into other parts of the US, or just going to work out of New Jersey? And have
no,
you
no.
picked up any distributors in the US?
Honestly speaking, I was trying very hard to get distributors, but with the distributors it was a little difficult because a lot of them were preoccupied with their suppliers. So
Yeah.
then I came up with another idea, and we invested in this to start to give us to give people a startup business who were interested in distributing inks. So we gave them an opportunity and invested with them, so that there are a lot of people who are into this business, want to be into this business, but they are short of money. So
Yeah.
we supported them, and in return they are standing with us and distributing the products. Right now I have been able to manage this business idea in Texas, and it's going on in Florida now. I have a company, I have been discussing with them in Florida. They have the goods, and that's what the second shipment is also coming in for. So
Okay.
that's how
If
this.
you need any more, I may have somebody that I know that uh, was in the industry selling ink
Hmm.
because of COVID, was eliminated, and might
Hmm.
be interested in working something with you.
All right, all right. Link me up with them. I will share with them my proposal. I will tell them how I can support them, and what we are doing to establish the distribution channel. um, so if that suits them, maybe we can work together and find a way.
I'll get in touch with him and see what kind of interest level he has.
Sure, sure, definitely.
You know,
And how, how are things with you? Consultation, trade shows?
uh, you know, it isn't the way it used to be, but I've done a number of shows.
Mm-hmm.
Although they started out really small, they
Mm-hmm.
were small shows to begin with, and these were half the size of what they normally were. But
Mm-hmm.
getting a show is open is definitely a positive move. Um, the last show I did was in September,
Mm-hmm.
which was the ISS Fort Worth show. And although it was smaller than usual, it was actually
Mm-hmm.
quite good. Um, decent amount of, a good amount of attendance, actually, considering everything. As far as exhibitors, not very heavy, but better than any of the others so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I think things are definitely moving in the right direction. I know there are quite a lot of companies that are going to Long Beach. I was on the phone with M&R, and they're putting together quite a large booth.
Mm-hmm.
Some new products that they've come up with. Um, I think for the most part, a lot of people are starting to feel more comfortable, even though we're getting a rise in COVID in the States, especially with that new strain is starting to hit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, there are those who are stupid about this whole thing and won't wear a mask, and which, I find absolutely incredible, because
Yeah.
what's the big deal with wearing a mask, really? I mean, if, you know, I think some people just don't believe that the number of dead are really what they say it is. And it's like, let's see, I know of two or three now that are gone.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't because they weren't healthy. They were, but it didn't do any good. But, the whole thing in the US has become a political situation, which is stupid, because it isn't. It's a medical situation.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're imposing on my rights. It's like, let's see, so is a seatbelt, but you do wear that.
Yeah.
And ridiculous. But I've been vaccinated. I've gotten my booster, and to be honest with you, If they come out with another booster, I'll take that.
I think personally that's the right thing to do. You know, when I was in before my visit to US, I got a dose of vaccine from Pakistan, but I wasn't able to get my second dose because before my time I had to travel. And a lot of people, they just asked me to just stay quiet, don't do that. But when I came to US, I took my doses all over again, and I consulted with the doctor, and he said it's all right. So I was like, okay, it's fine. Uh, it's better to go with this because you it's there's no harm. There's no harm in opposing, and I don't know what's the cool factor in opposing this, where a lot of people are just
A lot of it has to do with politics, not with the medical side. And
exactly.
it's just absolutely ridiculous. That being said, I mean, when I was at the airport, they were actually giving I mean, not flu shots, but COVID shots at the airport. All you had to do was walk up and get one. And, in a lot of the countries, just getting it is difficult. Here, they're giving it away, and there are people who aren't taking it, and I don't understand that. And I'll never understand it, but that's all right. I'm probably not the smartest guy in the world anyway, so why would I understand why people
Yeah,
could be so stupid?
I,
But
I totally agree.
but
But things have definitely changed. The business acumen, the people, everything has changed. I was having a look at the Fespa was exhibition this year, and not a lot came out there as well. Although a lot of people were participating, and but a lot of people backed up as well. And
so I spoke to a couple of guys who did go to the Fespa show. You didn't go, I assume.
no, I didn't.
And for anyone from the US, if we wanted to go to Amsterdam, we had to quarantine for 10 days first. And it's kind of like, you know what? It's not worth it.
Mm.
But at the same time, I asked them about the show, and they said there were no ink companies and there were no screen print manufacturers there, or textile manufacturers. So, the way I looked at it was, it's nothing more than a digital show. Nothing against digital. I think it's a very up and coming situation, but I'm not interested in going to a digital show, to be honest with you. I mean, that's just not where I do my business, so to speak. I do get involved with it to some extent, but I know so little about it in terms of getting on a machine and actually making it work and making modifications, that it's a useless thing for me. But they felt it was a very regional show. It was almost all Europeans and nothing but Europeans. The few that I had a friend fly in from Istanbul, or a couple of them, and they were there for one day and left. It just wasn't at all what it used to be.
There is
Yeah.
Fespa going on in Istanbul right now, and the
But
situation is
it
very.
just finished, actually. It was I think it was the 4th, 5th, and 6th or something. That one appeared to be a little better. I have a call into a friend, but I haven't gotten a response yet. But certainly I was viewing it online in terms of Facebook, and there were definitely screen print companies, ink companies there. And so to me, that was a good sign. I did do a couple of work. I did some a workshop. As a matter of fact, did one for Vastex, and then I've done some consulting work, which has been pretty interesting, actually. I'll be out on Long Island again, working with this particular company, and also in New Jersey, but I'm in Southern Jersey, down in Mount Laurel.
Okay.
But those things are opening up. I've got a couple of things scheduled for January, if all goes well. Okay. wanted to record this in case we wanted to look at it again. It'll be on my website, by the way. I posted this on a lot of the foreign sites from Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, et cetera. That's why I was asking you about ink. Are you doing much over? Obviously you're in Pakistan. I assume you're still going forward with everything there. You had mentioned at one time a fairly large shop there that was, or somebody who's looking to put in a large shop.
Yes,
Are they
yes.
still looking to do that, or are they backed out for now?
They didn't backed off, but we were never approached back, and it came we have salesmen and people on the ground, so it came to our realization and our knowledge that they bought a second-hand used machine, and they just installed it, and they are just going on with that machine. You will be surprised how the people are investing here, and I would say not investing, wasting a lot of money in this, because this company, I realized that they were not very much interested in improving their printing. Rather, they were just trying to fool the garment manufacturers or the buyers that we have in-house printing by installing that one machine that hardly works, and getting the
There are
work done.
sometimes that buying a used machine definitely makes sense. There are
It
other
does.
times where if you have a substantial business, you don't buy used equipment, you buy new equipment so that it's reliable and so that you have more cutting edge technology. I'm working with a company out on now. It's actually one of the biggest I've ever worked with. They have 26 automatics, and they don't consider themselves printers because really what they want to do is move their goods. In order to do that, they have to print, and short runs, which is kind of insane. I'm just not used to having a company with 26 automatics doing runs of less than 100 pieces, but that's their business. And so they're now looking at moving into a newer facility, or I shouldn't say newer, adding on to what they have.
Mhm.
And so now they're looking at buying 24 new machines besides the 26 they already have, so that everything is uniform. And the dryers and really the whole thing. I mean, I started doing some quick arithmetic. It's probably going to be a $4 or $5 million situation. And they have the business,
This
and it's
company is.
stupid to sit on things that don't make sense. So they're going to sell off all their old equipment. Whoever
Mhm.
gets it is going to get some pretty decent stuff, but it didn't even pay to move it over to the new place. They're just going to go right into brand new all the way through, and then sell off as much of the old as they have to.
I bought machines, when I was doing screen printing and running the shop. I bought a couple of used second-hand machines, not used but second-hand, because there was a guy who imported this M&R machine, M&R Challenger. What was it? A Challenger 2 with a large pallet size of 40 inches by 30 inches, something like this, for all
Yeah.
over prints. And he did imported that machine, and he was not able to run it. So it was just standing there, and you wouldn't believe me. He imported this machine, a huge gas dryer, two manuals, a
Wow.
complete exposure unit. It was a whole printing setup. And one day I got a call from somebody, and he was like, there's this guy. He imported this machines, and he's not able to run it. So I met him, and I was like, "Are you willing to sell it?" He was like, "Happily, because I can not run it." I purchased all of that equipment, and that was in a pretty decent price, because that was a new machine and he couldn't run it. So I was
Yeah.
like, if people can get this sort of deal, that's sensible. But this person who installed this used machine, I I know the guy from whom he bought this machine, and he himself hasn't used this machine for past 8 years. So
Well, maybe it's a
you
new
know,
machine. You know, uh,
it probably
even if
is.
you buy a used machine, the first thing you need to do is bring in a technician and have them go over it. and then bring in
Exactly.
someone to teach you how to use it correctly, which
You know,
I'll never understand. But, people
in
get
this
very
issue with
funny.
this,
They'll spend a certain amount of money on equipment, but they won't
Mhm.
spend money to support the equipment. I
Yeah.
don't understand that. The company I'm working with has, I think they bought 10 presses at one time, all the same. And I think they're maybe 2 or 3 years old, and they'll probably sell off all of those. So whoever buys those is going to get a great deal out of it, because they're
Mhm.
really not worked heavily. But at
Mhm.
the same time, um, they're smart enough to know that in order for their business to really move in the right direction,
Mhm.
they're going to just go with new. And to me, that makes a lot of sense. I remember I did do some work in Pakistan, and the guy who I worked with, I noticed he just put a Facebook page on where I guess he's gotten in some new equipment now. Because when I was there, he had one new machine or newer machine and a bunch of horrible old machines, the old shank machines, which um, the day they were made, they weren't so wonderful. And to have older ones was really bad. Controlling them was ridiculous. Um, it's one of those things. If you've spent the money to buy the machinery, then get somebody to help you make it work as well as you can. But
There is a guy in Pakistan. He installed a machine, an oval machine of I don't know what's it, 38 pallets,
uh-huh.
and huge machine. And the most of his production he's done doing on manuals, because he's got 10 manuals there. Hardly able to get the full potential of the machine. I have hardly seen it running. So
It's interesting. Like I said, the
yeah.
company I'm working with has 26 machines.
Hmm.
They average between 48 and 72 pieces per job. Okay. So
Okay.
their teams are really good. I watched a group of women printing, 2 per machine, and getting out over 1,000 pieces in a day with probably 15 setups, which I think is great, actually.
That is very good number, because changing screens, setting up the registration, getting up a new design and again, that's not an easy job. And if they were doing 3 designs an hour, I would say that they were doing a good job.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they really were.
Hmm.
You know,
Charlie,
did you
yeah,
lose me? I'm
no,
there.
I can hear you. Yeah,
I got a thing that I needed to try and close some of the windows that I had open. Sorry about that.
it's all right.
So are you doing much in the way of India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh?
It's a little bit tough from with India, because in India we are exporting through United States now,
Right.
because the goods that we get in there, and in case we have an order, we ship it from United States to India, because from Pakistan it's a little bit difficult. So we are doing that, but Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, we are doing good. Recently, a lot of people interested in this. Table printing in Bangladesh is much more of interest to people than machines.
Yeah.
So things are going good on there. I have been trying to reach out people, and as you go to a lot of people, printers, them. I was just I'm trying to get around with them and try to learn what problems or what new things are they looking forward from the screen printing industry, for example the inks manufacturer, because we are doing new things, and we always want to be in those category, the people who are developing something. I So what do you think, like what's the thing that people are looking forward, like if this is with them, it's gonna solve some of their problems, for example?
So you're talking about, are they looking for new inks or new procedures?
Not a new company, but a new
No, no,
procedure.
no. For the
Yes.
existing companies, what are they looking for?
Yeah.
You know, each company is so so different. I think a couple of things. Hey, Greg, are you on? I know you're on. I don't know if you're just listening in or if you're wanting to chat, but from your company, what are you looking for? Now, you may not be sitting at his computer. In any event, what I'm hearing is obviously things have picked up. A lot of companies went away, but of those who didn't, they've picked up and they're doing quite well. I think the biggest thing is getting employees, believe it or not. It has nothing to do with product. It has to do with people. Every shop I go into is short on people. And in the US, because of the monies that were given away, there are quite a few people who just didn't want to go back to work. They were probably getting more money sitting home than they were by going to work. And, you know, the question that I have for someone who would want a job now is, why weren't you working? You know, I mean, everybody is dying for people.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, the thing that they're trying to do now is with a smaller staff is how can they turn their jobs faster? How can they set up faster? How can they print? You know, and it's not even the printing speed, because if you have an automatic, for example, you're not going to crank it up too much more. Okay. You know, if you've been averaging out close to 400 pieces an hour all day long, you're probably not going to be able to push it a lot more than that unless you have these huge runs, which in the US just don't really show up very often. But the question is, can I set up faster? Because that's where it's the downtime that is more difficult. If I can set up 10 minutes faster per job and I'm doing 3 jobs a day, that's a half hour of printing that I get out of it. Well, a half hour of printing adds up to a substantial amount of money at the end of the day. As far as product goes, you know, everybody is always looking for a creamier, whiter white that can go on cotton, poly cotton, and polyester. At the moment, I think just getting some of the inks are more important to them than anything else. They're just
A lot of people showed interest recently. The heat transfer printers showed a lot of interest in a product that I was trying to pitch them. The heat transfers to without any powder. Some of the
yeah,
large companies, they were supplying this product, but it was a little bit too expensive to run on bigger jobs. So we came up with this solution in a cost efficient way. So a lot of people showed interest in that, but they were like, is it gonna be good for stretch, for washing? How's it gonna be? So once we went in there, that is something that a lot of people liked recently because it was saving them time. It was saving them a lot of money in terms of the powder dust being
powder,
eliminated.
sure,
Yeah, so that was something I liked because everybody's selling inks. There are a lot of companies, not just us. But
right.
coming up with something different, coming up with a solution is something that makes you feel good. Just having a plastisol color is not a big deal. So
I know. So you're doing water-based as well, or you're just shipping in plastisol now?
in US we are just shipping in plastisols,
Okay.
but in Asia we are doing water based as well.
Well, you have to. If you don't do water-based there, then you don't have much of a business anymore. Uh,
Yes, over
so,
here it's very much different. It's a lot of water based.
you know, water-based has certainly picked up here a lot, especially in the last couple of years, just because people want the hand, they want to basically stay in tune with where some of the other companies are, such as Nike, et cetera, where they're pushing a lot of water-based. Are you doing any silicone at all?
No, no. We aren't doing silicone at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's really quite a specialized situation. And unless you have chemists on hand and somebody who really understands it, I think that it's an expensive proposition that may not make a whole lot of sense unless you have a specific market for it. And I know when I go to Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, they are using a decent amount, but it still makes up a small fraction of what their overall ink situation is. Water-based being absolutely king,
Yes,
especially uh, the polyurethane water-based versus the acrylic.
acrylic. Yeah.
And what's interesting in the US, it's as far as I know, there isn't much in the way of polyurethane acrylic being done. I mean, polyurethane ink being done.
Mhm.
What I found when I was in Bangladesh, they were using polyurethanes because those can stretch very well where the acrylics would crack.
Mhm.
I don't,
Yes,
I
a
don't,
lot.
I don't think a lot of Americans are aware of the difference between an acrylic and a polyurethane.
In US, what I have seen, the people working with water base are doing so much sophisticated work that I was impressed. Like they have humidifiers and a whole lot of equipment to support the water based system. Whereas over here, where we are working in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, they want to do water based in heated atmospheres. You have been there, you have seen the situations, and they want the cheapest of the products, and that's one of the toughest situations that we are facing, because in US I believe running water base is a little bit more convenient, because they have a lot of supportive equipment on the automatic machines, but here on the table runs it's just horrific.
Well, on the table, you can't do much of anything in the way of steamers or anything of that nature. I did come up with a particular product which I need to actually get Action Engineering to push a little harder, which is that wall.
Mhm.
That's mine. Um, I need to go and pick it up from the company that's been doing the testing on it. It's actually working very well. And what it does is it's strictly for an automatic, but it allows you to not build up ink on the side past the squeegee and flood bar so that it doesn't dry out. So this keeps on bringing it back in, and you don't have the ink crusting, and you don't have to stop to clean out the ink or to open up the screen because of
Right.
it getting clogged from the dried out pieces of ink.
Mhm.
I don't know. Have I ever sent you a video on that?
You did send me, you
Yeah.
informed me that you're working on something
Well,
that this, but you said it's yet to come out.
I know they've sold some of them. I need to go back and shoot a really nice video of it from start to finish. Right now, what I have is a bunch of chopped up videos, which
Mm.
doesn't really do a whole lot of anything in terms of making it understandable to the average person. Are you doing much
There's
with
one.
Action Engineering at all?
No, not at all, actually, because I think he has been busy, and things didn't catch up. Then I got busy because a lot of things, marketing material and all these things were needed here, but then I think Eric got busy, and I tried to follow up but didn't work well. So then I shifted my attention towards United States, getting the stock there and filling up the market. So I wasn't able to keep up with that anymore.
Well, if you need some help with that, I can certainly offer some help there.
Sure, sure. I know. I will definitely hit you up. My people keep pushing that, and they are just informing the people we have this product, for example. But it let's see how it works out. One thing that I wanted to discuss with you is that I was looking at these different companies providing inks, you know, but what surprised me was that in our countries we sell inks with kgs by weight, by
Right.
pounds and kgs, and in US we sell it by volumes, like
Yes.
per gallon.
Yep.
What's was surprising me was that I was weighing different companies' inks, and 5 gallon of ink. One of the companies they have it like how would I say 640 ounces, or in pounds, if I would say 40 pounds of ink.
Okay.
Whereas the other company with a similar product was I would say 55 pounds of ink. So the weight difference is a lot. So I was just wondering, like, is it the product? Is it the packaging?
It's it's how much they put in the way of raw materials. So for every ink company in the US, they all have 6, 7, 8, 10 different white inks. Okay. And so some cost more, some cost less. And I think a lot of it has to do with what they're putting into it. And so you're
Mhm,
absolutely correct. The weight difference from 1 gallon to another, or from certainly you fill it more in a 5 gallon bucket. Um,
mhm.
they're basing their pricing, I'm guessing, based on what the weight is. I know when I worked with Rutland, for every 55-gallon drum that they sent out, the weight on top was in ounces or in
Mhm.
pounds, I forget exactly, but it was stamped with weight, not just with volume. But in the US, everybody's accustomed to buying in volume. So you buy a quart or a gallon or 5 gallons,
Yeah.
and the cost differences are based on really what the weight was. But of course,
Mhm.
that's not explained over to the end user. The end user is just looking at a gallon, and why should I
Yeah.
buy this gallon for $70 or this gallon for $90? Um,
Mhm.
and trying to explain that the $90 a gallon might be a better option because you may not be using as much of it. It may give you a better finish, etc.
Mhm.
The American market is always an interesting one. Um,
Oh, that's because
they
now
look
we are
for,
selling inks as well, and
you know,
I was comparing the weights and then the prices, and I was just wondering. I was discussing with my team as well back here and over there as well. The R&D people, the people working in research. I was like, there is a huge difference in weights, and if you can match this weight, the cost can go down, and I can be more competitive. But they were like, really sorry about it, can't do that because that's gonna move the product, that's gonna move the quality, and
right.
can't press.
When you put out an all-purpose ink, it weighs a lot less. When you put out a high opacity ink, it weighs a lot more because you have more
Yeah.
pigment in it. And so, of course, the cost is that much greater. To me, personally, any company that I work with, I push them into nothing but high opacity inks because they can always cut them and make them less expensive if they're going on light colored goods,
Mhm.
rather than having two different situations of all-purpose ink and high opacity ink. Doesn't make sense to me. You can't take an all-purpose ink and make it more opaque.
Yes, but you can
And,
cut
and
down on the
so,
backing. That's correct.
you know, when I owned a supply house for 13 years, and going into a shop to sell them on something was always a challenge.
Mhm.
You had to sometimes just tell them, look, we're going to put your ink here that you're using, and I'm going to put my ink here, and we're going to print them at the same time so
Mhm.
that you can understand why you're going to be paying the difference for a better finished product. And
Mhm.
it's always amazing. It's kind of like, well, no, I'd rather than one stroke of a $90 a gallon ink, I'll do two strokes of a $60 a gallon ink. And it's kind of like, yeah, your
Yeah.
$60 a gallon ink is now $90, except it's now taking you twice as long to print it. What about the money that you just spent for printing? You're not factoring that in. And unfortunately, a lot of US companies don't understand that time is money, and they don't have when I worked with a company many years ago down in Florida, huge company, 25 automatics, et cetera. And I met with their CFO, who wanted me to try and figure out a way of saving them 10 cents a print. And I said, well, okay, what is your press? What do you put a value on your press time? They had all kinds of licenses for football, baseball, et cetera. And they said, well, we figure our press time is worth $750 an hour. And it's like, wow, okay. I'm not a financial guy, but at the same time, that's a huge amount of money. And you want me to try and save you some money. So I did my analysis and I kind of looked around and I came up with, if you want to save that money, the money that you're talking about, you need to change your emulsion. And they said, well, we buy our emulsion. It's made specially for us and we pay a really good price for it. I said, yeah, you do. Here's the problem. You're not exposing your screens correctly. And the reason they weren't, they were doing 1,500 screens a day. Okay, which for a small shop is more than what a small shop will do in a year. That was there every day. And so when you do that many screens, you really need to watch your exposures. And they were working with a pure polymer at that time. And pure polymers don't change color. So you don't know if you're exposing correctly or not. And so when they put in new bulbs into their exposing unit, that was fine. It didn't take very long for those exposing units to basically go down in terms of the amount of UV light that was being put out. And even though there were what you call light integrators put into it, a light integrator does some compensating, but not all of it. And so the end of a week, they've done, you know, let's see, 3, 6, about 7.5, 8,000 screens. And so really about every 2 or 3 months, they had to change all their bulbs, which was costing a fair amount of money, but that's okay. I mean, you know, it was a $200 million company. So the fact that they had to spend $3,000 every 2 to 3 months on new bulbs was not a big deal. And they would try and do some exposure tests once a week, really wasn't enough. And so they were having a lot of screen breakdown. I told them I wanted to switch over to a dual exposing emulsion, because the dual exposing, you can see if you've exposed correctly based on the color change. Okay. And so I had an argument with the guy who ran the screen room, who said, you know, if we do it your way, because of the additional cost of the emulsion, because of the additional exposure time, and because we're going to go through so many more bulbs, we're going to lose an additional $100,000 a year. And I said, no, you're wrong. In any event, what turned out was in a short period of time after that, he left for a different job. And actually the guy who's still running it took over on it and went over and did exactly what I asked him to do. And sure enough, they saved about 10 cents a print. So, you know, was it a lot of money? It's a huge amount of money, but it was done because their biggest issue was downtime on press. Every time they had pinhole problems, they had to stop, they had to fix them. And all of that downtime at $750 an hour, let me pull out a computer. I mean, let's see, 750 divided by 60, $12.50 a minute that they were down. And so if you can save, you know, 10, 15 minutes or 10 minutes in a hour, maybe not even all day long. If you can save an hour, that's $750 times 25 machines.
Yes, that's a lot of money. And
So
if you're saving
750 times 25, you know, that's almost $19,000 a day that they could save by spending a bit more, but getting a lot more in return. So, you know, the $1,875, quote unquote, wasn't all profit because they had to pay a bit more for the emulsion. They had to definitely go through more bulbs. But when you do the arithmetic on it, it was like, what a deal.
Yes.
That's
I'll-
part of the issue in selling an ink or in selling anything in this industry, is getting them to understand what their time is worth, or their press time. And when I do my workshops, that's one of the things I absolutely push hard is, what is your press time worth? Your press time isn't just worth what you charge per print. Your press time is worth that plus whatever it costs you to put the key in the door that day. And so those are all things that have to be packaged into it. And that's why on, for a small shop, they have to get out a certain amount. For a large shop, they have to get out that much more just to break even for the day.
these are some of the challenges that, it's the same case all over the world. Explaining and convincing people, even in Pakistan, I hear this a lot: you are expensive. I always tell them, yes, I know I am expensive, but just listen. Like try to explain them. A lot of people, they are exporting hundreds and thousands of garments, and they don't want to pay for a good poly white or a good non-migrating white, and they're coming up with, your white is, for example, $2 a kg more or $3 a kg more. So I try to explain them that, the print cost is just a few cents, and when the garment is going to migrate and your ink is not able to prevent it, then you're going to pay a claim worth of thousands of dollars. It's not just going to be the cost of the ink, you're going to pay multiple times. So have a look at the ink and then try to analyze the time and the money that you're going to save on a longer period. But
And you're absolutely right. Here's the thing, hire me, I'll show you how to do that. Because part of what
yeah,
you really have to do is, you can't just tell them that, okay? Because as far as they're concerned, it goes in one ear and out the other. What you actually have to do is put paperwork and procedures in place and documentation, so that they can run with your ink on one machine, or even on the tables, run with the other on the tables, and document um, their downtime, their production time, um, the problems that they've run into, and say, look, for the next 30 days, let's just separate the two we'll take the company, we'll break it in half, and we'll keep a log on each one in terms of how long it takes to set up, in terms of how long it takes to produce, in terms of problems that have occurred during that period of time. And at the end of the month, let's just put it together and see what it all adds up to. Will it always add up the way you'd like it to? Most of the time it will. And of course, you won't know if they've gotten any returns or anything in that 30-day period, just because by the time a customer gets it, et cetera, and a file is claimed, a claim is filed, it may be more than that 30-day period. But certainly if they have migration problems that show up while they're there, they're going to have to redo the goods. They're going to have to throw out the old goods. And so I think in a 30-day span, you could probably be able to justify why that they're not spending more. They're spending it up front, but they're getting a better return on that. But you have to prove it to them. And the only way you're going to get to prove it is you've got to actually put it in there and say, hey, let's do this. You run it on that with your stuff. You run this side with my stuff, and let's see what happens at the end of a month.
the problem here is, you remember you told me that you went to Sri Lanka and tried to demonstrate the double squeegee, double
Yeah.
glazed
I
to
know.
that
Unless you're talking to the owner, it doesn't do any good.
exactly the problem here. A
It's the
lot of
problem.
people.
It's a problem everywhere, even in the US. Unless you're dealing with the owner,
Mhm.
or unless the owner is brought into it, very difficult to make a change.
Exactly.
Even in the US,
Just
it's the production manager that makes that call most of the
yeah,
time. And if they're friendly with a particular supplier, or
yeah.
they just kind of like this particular product for some good reasons, maybe not great reasons, getting them to change it is very difficult, because they're also accustomed to it. They understand how to handle it. even if it isn't great. So until you can deal with an owner, brutal. And you're absolutely correct. Look, Sri Lanka, India, every factory that I went into, especially I think I was in Bangladesh. It all worked great, but never got to speak to an owner. And the ones that I did speak to, not bad. That was just a few. I think one or two. All the others were run by production people, and they don't want to change, or they're afraid to change. If it's that much better, the question is, why didn't you do it before? The smart thing would be for them to say, this is a new product and we've tested it and we know it can make you more money. Why won't they do that? I don't know. Maybe they're just not smart enough, or maybe they just don't want to change what's already going on. They're sitting in a comfortable position.
Yes.
In India, Pakistan, etc., there's a hierarchy. Okay. And so if you're the production manager, you are king, and whatever you want, you get. Okay. Do I really want a chance losing my crown? And the answer is, I really don't want to chance it. So, and what's so stupid to me is, such as the double squeegee and the roller squeegee. It's such a small investment that it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even show up on the books, so to speak, because, like the biggest shop that I went into in Bangladesh had 2 buildings. I think they had at that time 30 automatics and about 10 floors of print tables. And I'm thinking, okay, so the print tables, they are what they are. You got 30 automatics and you can literally bump it up tremendously, but nope, they won't do it.
Exactly the similar situations here. I was just I would tell you about yesterday. Uh, my salespeople were working with a company and trying to introduce them to our high density paste. Now, the paste that they were using was not actually uh, creating a lot of density. It was a thin paste, so they had to run a lot. So to reduce the running and reduce the hands and squeegee passes, they were adding in a little bit of puff additive to it.
Of course. Yeah. Then they lose clarity.
Now we were trying to explain them that, listen, you're adding puff, it's going to reduce the elasticity and it's not creating the high density. It's creating a curve. It's not the sharp edge thing that you want. And if you're going to use this high density, and if you compare it just the high density paste, so the height that you're going to get with this paste within 5 passes is equal to the one that you're using is coming out in 12 passes. Just imagine the difference, and the time and the money. And then my people, they went out to the owner, and the owner was like, listen man, thing is, you got to convince that one. Then he called the production manager again. So it was useless, because my sales team told me that we went to the owner just to convince him. And again, he came up with the manager, and the manager was not too happy because they met the owner.
Right.
So the owner was like, listen, he's the one who has to work at the end. So if he's giving me a good job with with this product, I don't mind. So they came back, and you cannot make a production manager angry. That's just
Oh, no.
no,
You make him angry and you never get his business, even if you have the best thing in the world. It was interesting when I did go to Pakistan. Everything that I recommended, the owner did do. And so when I saw him probably about 6 months later at a show, I said, how's things going? He said, our production is up probably 25 or 30%, which is crazy. You shouldn't be able to bring it up that much, but they were doing such a poor job that they were able to. The reason they did everything that I wanted them to is because they brought me in and hired me and they paid for that. And so at that point, they had to get their money back, so to speak, okay? Because they made an investment, now they needed to justify that investment. The problem when you have a salesperson walking in is it just looks like they're there just to sell their product. Do they really care if your production improves or not? They only care, quote unquote, in terms of trying to sell more product.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you have an owner that says the production manager has to make it work, that's that's bad. But obviously they're making enough money so that they don't care. Okay. Could they make more? Yes. Will they? Well, that means they actually have to get involved. And for a lot of owners, they don't know anything about printing. They may,
Yeah.
most of them, even the company I work with, they knew garments, but they didn't know printing.
True.
Okay. They knew how to make a sale based on the print, but what they were really wanting to sell is the garment, and the print was the secondary issue. It's the print that made the garment sell.
Yeah. But the tough point is that the people, they just do not understand this. You know, this consultation, a lot of people from Turkey, they 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 got some good chance in Pakistan, and they stayed here for. There were a lot of garment factories installing printing machineries, and they were paying them high money and keeping them here for 6 months and 5 months in order for them to streamline their productions. And I am kidding you not.
I think that's a
After
joke because having done a lot of work in Turkey, there are very
Yeah.
few shops that are streamlined there. So I don't know how they can go over to Pakistan and do a good job.
I totally agree with you. I met these people. I used to go out dinner with them, and I used to understand what they are trying to do. And they wrote a manual for the factory, they wrote a book, and all the, I would say, the fancy stuff. But at the end, when they left, I have visited those factories again, and they are doing exactly as they were doing before they hired them.
Yeah, not unusual. Unless the owner is really in, and unless the owner, listen, if you don't have enough documentation, you really don't know what's going on the floor. Every owner
Exactly.
that I've heard of is interested in one thing, the bottom line. How many
Yes.
pieces do we do today? And how
Yes.
much is that worth? And so how you got there, we don't care as long as you get to the number.
True, true, 100% true. I totally agree. That's the mindset over here, and that's how it works. Not here, but I have seen in a lot of countries. That's how it
Oh,
is. The owner
absolutely.
just asks, "I
It's
don't
not
care what
just
you do."
Pakistan. It's wherever
Yeah.
you go.
Yes.
So who knows? Some things you'll
That's
never change, you know? Or
that.
maybe the only way you're going to make changes in any of this is if the owners are actually involved. And so in small shops, the owners are involved, and that's why they do a better job most of the time.
Agreed.
But
Agreed.
so I'm almost finished with my book. Matter of fact, I was working on it.
Uh-huh.
Hoping to have it done by January. Could be close. I'm in the midst
Looking
of
for.
putting it together now to see how many pages it's going to come out to so I can get it published. I hope, if I can figure out how to publish it. But we'll see. In any event, thank you so much for coming on. How's the baby?
Baby's doing great, keeping us busy, keeping us, active.
Well, that's good. It's supposed to happen that way.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure, as always.
It's
And
been a while since I chatted with you, so I thought this was kind of a nice thing.
it absolutely was. I have really thought about calling you and keep coming up on your session, but these past few months have been crazy. Uh, Great conversation. It was great to have you, and thank you for joining us. And speak to you soon. I'll keep in touch, and we will plan out ISS then.
Yeah, if you're going to be there, certainly let me know and we'll make some plans.
Sure, sure, definitely.
All right. Well, you have a good
All
night.
right. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye.